You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I am hoping you are having just an amazing day, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. So, hey there. Hi. Before we jump into today's episode, which is a good one, by the way, I am spilling the tea on some of the most panicked and fearful moments I might have had in my business because someone wasn't happy with what we did or how we're handling things. So I'm diving into client grievances today and how to advocate for your business in a grounded and neutral way. But before I do that, I want to read the lovely words that someone had left for us over at Apple Podcasts. And it's a long multi-letter kind of profile. So I don't want to share the profile name because it's just a lot of letters. But if you hear this and you know it was from you, I just want to say thank you. Lori shares true business strategies, actionable steps to take to grow your own business, and shares the secrets and lessons that help each listener apply the ideas to their own business. I'm so happy that I found Lori in Staging Sips, and I'm excited to grow my business with her expertise and guidance. Well, you are so welcome, and thank you so much. And to that end, I really want us to strengthen our Staging Sips community and our staging community at large. So I have two requests from you today as you're listening to this episode. The first is, if the Staging Sips podcast has helped you at all, please leave a rating and or a review for the podcast. It just helps us go up in the algorithm so that staging business owners like you can find us. It is so meaningful. So thank you so much. That's the first thing. And secondly, if you find yourself scrolling on Instagram at all this week and you come across another staging business owner's posts, definitely like and comment on it. It helps them get in front of their audiences when you do that. So let's just be someone who leads by example and is a giver, because when we give, we gain, right? So it's good for you. When you give to people, you'll get that back in return. So, and one more thing before we dive in, I just wanted to let you know that the Accelerate program is still on rolling admissions at this point and at this time of this recording. So I want to welcome our newest students into Accelerate. It's amazing. We love having you. And if you are one of those business owners that you are hitting out and you're tapping out at your ability to run all of the show for your business, or you've hired team and you want to get more efficient with your team, that Accelerate program is designed specifically for you. Come check us out and join us. You can find out all of the information at rethinkhominteriors.com/accelerate. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Okay. On to the episode for today, advocating for your staging business. And I'm talking about advocacy from a couple of perspectives today. The first is the staging choices you make for a property. So this is when a client requests a change or they express dissatisfaction with some aspect of your work or maybe all of your work, which, oh goodness, I hope that never happens to you. But anyway, and how you operate your business when someone questions your policies or your practices, or when someone wants to morph your services to fit their current needs, which I find this happens fairly frequently, or had happened fairly frequently in the earlier phases of my business. And I was not always quite sure how to handle it. And so let me just clarify what I mean by advocacy. I simply mean having your businesses back. No matter what happens, you will choose to make a decision in the best interest of your business, whether that is in the short term or the long term, and you are willing to let non-ideal clients filter themselves out. And this can be really hard in the beginning, to think about potentially letting go of non-ideal clients. But I promise you, from someone who has had this happen when I've put client filters into my business, I've lost non-ideal clients, and our team has been so much happier, and it has opened up the door for more ideal clients to work with us. And if you don't know what I mean by client filters, check out episode 7, how to create client filters for your home staging business. It's a really phenomenal episode about what I think, how I define a client filter, what the filters are that I have in my business, and how you can implement them in your business. because I really don't necessarily mean that you're going to battle every time for your business. It simply means you're willing to hear someone out and communicate from a grounded state what your policy or procedure is and why you've made the staging choices that you have made. So I wanted to do this episode mostly because I see a lot of posts about this in the Facebook communities, and I'm not a Facebook person, so I'm typically late to the game when someone is posting this, but I happen to recently be kind of one of the top people to have seen a post about someone who was saying that the sellers had, left them, texted them a lot of like questioning why they did certain things. And they thought that this was too small or this was wrong or something looked cheap. And the business owner shared the before and after pictures, and there was a market transformation done, and the stager did a beautiful job. So I left a response to her about how to respond, which I will share with you. Because I've experienced this in my own business. I've had to advocate for my business without shying away, but coming from a grounded, neutral position. So in the case of this particular business owner, the advice that I shared was that you simply text back, and or email back in this case, but I think it was a text back and say, thank you so much for sharing your feedback with me. I know that when you have a house staged and you've never had a house staged before, it can seem really strange, some of the ways that we style spaces to sell. I'd love to talk to you or walk you through the decisions that we made so that you can understand why we have done it. Let's schedule a time to get on a call to discuss it. I wrote it much more eloquently than I just said it. But the point was, and what I'd said was that what I have found is when you hold your ground and you say, oh yeah, I made those choices on purpose, and here's the reason why, that immediately calms people down. They're like, oh, okay, so she knows what she's doing, or he knows what he's doing, because we're not going into panic mode. But also, people tend not to want to get on the phone and want to hear you out. That is just like a hurdle to them. And what I've heard is that the complaints go right away the minute you say, yeah, I'm willing to get on a phone call with you and to talk to you about this. But I also have found that when they do want to get on the phone and you get on the phone with somebody and you're coming from a grounded, neutral place, you can say, oh yeah, no, I totally understand why you would think that. Here's the reason why we do that when we stage, right? Like, so they may not understand that we are staging because of photographs, or sometimes if your scale is a little bit smaller and things, a lot of it has to do with traffic flow and how, people will navigate through the listing, things like that. There's all kinds of reasons you can give for certain things. So anyway, I wanted to do that episode because I see that this coming up time and time again. So let's dive into, and of course, like I said, I've got experience. So and I'm going to share it. So let's start with when someone questions your staging choices. And if you haven't already had this happen, the likelihood is that you will. So let's prepare for it. They may not like something you did. They may ask for changes or modification. And this can put us into full on panic mode. And it has for me in the past, but that doesn't mean that we have to react from panic. We can take a beat, get ourselves grounded, and have a conversation. So let me share a couple of examples that have happened in my own business. Now, this is going way, way back in my business, but I received an angry text at 1:30 in the morning from a homeowner who had a staging consultation with us. And one of the things that we had talked about was that their dog when you first walked into this house, it was an older Victorian. Right straight ahead of you was this staircase, which had a beautiful stair railing, but the stair treads were chewed up by their dog up and down those stairs. And because it was one of the first things people would see coming into the house, I had recommended as part of my consultation that we stain those steps. And the homeowner agreed to that and was traveling and said they trusted me to make the decision on staining these steps, whatever I thought they should be stained. And the work would be done while they were away. So maybe first lesson learned from me was that I should get sign off on the stain color, but I didn't. but I also felt completely confident with the decision I had made. But the homeowner came home and was very angry because I had stained the stair treads in a deeper tone than the floors that they were coming down to. The reason for this was that I didn't want to try to match it was actually like vinyl flooring. I couldn't really match that. And so I decided rather than trying to get to be a close match and miss, we'd go a shade darker. And the client was livid. The other thing that had to happen was their deck needed to be stained. It was an old deck with a lot of like rotting boards and then some patched in new boards. So we needed to use an opaque stain. And she was angry because she thought I had the painters paint the deck because it was a deep, an opaque stain. Anyway, she sent me this angry text. So I texted her the next morning to say, would love to chat with you about this live. What time works for you? Of course, I was sweating my brains out when I sent that text. And she said, I am busy traveling today, able to talk at, and she gave me whatever time. I said, great, I will call you at that time. I called her at that time and she did not answer the phone. So I texted to say, just wanted to let you know, I called at our appointed time. It went through, and it went through to voicemail. So I left her voicemail. I said, just wanted to let you know, I'm calling in at our time. Left her that text. She proceeded to not call back. She proceeded to text me again to say how upset she was and she couldn't get over it, to which I said, I'd love to get on the phone with you so I can talk you through what the decision making was. Please give me a new time. She did not give me a new time. So I called her again. She did not answer. The listing went live. The house sold within like 2 or 3 days on the market. So I was like, isn't that funny? When you want somebody to talk directly to you, it just taught me people may want to hide behind text or email. And when you are willing to step up and meet them and have an actual conversation, how much somebody doesn't actually want to do that. So that was my first lesson. The next one was this is years gone by now and I have more experience under my belt, was a homeowner who had been through multiple agents and done all of the updates that they said that she should make. But the one thing was that they did not do was stage. And so she had moved out of this house, needed to sell it desperately, and decided that at this point she should invest in staging for her listing. So, I should have had 1,000 red flags because of the multiple people she had been through, but she seemed willing to do what they asked. It just hadn't seemed to work. So I knew staging would work for her house. It was a great house, but it had some finishes that seemed out of date. So first of all, she refused to not be there on staging day. She was there the entire time, stressing our team out to no end, even though I had said to her, we really need to work, without you. She's like, oh, I'll stay out of the way. Whatever room you're working in, I will stay out of it. And she did do that. But as we left that day, she said, I'm beside myself. I am so upset. I don't understand any of your staging choices. I don't get why you did what you did. The colors don't match. All things that I knew were not true. And I looked at her and I said to her, I said, Christine, I said, the house looks amazing. It is going to sell super fast. Just give me the first weekend you're on the market. And if you are getting feedback that the house isn't, up to par, then let's have a conversation. That house never actually had a single showing. It sold based on the photos alone within hours of it being listed. So again, it taught me stand by my work, right? That our team's work is really solid and really good. And I was willing to make adjustments if we came to that. I was willing to do the whole, I'm happy to make 3 changes What are your biggest priorities, as long as it does not require a moving van and it can all be installed by one team member? That was really key. This same homeowner, by the way, at the end of the staging agreement, our team went into D-stage and she accused our team of leaving a large scratch on the foyer floor, which I actually knew most likely happened because one of the pieces, she left one piece of furniture for us to use in our staging, which was a sofa that was a sofa bed that was broken, that I imagine when somebody from her side of things moved that out, was not expecting that the sofa bed was broken and was falling, hanging below the sofa. But again, I use the let's get on the phone so we can talk this through. I mean, I can share with you pictures of the condition ahead of time that was not there. My mover has pictures of after the fact it was not there, but I'm happy to get on a call with you so we can troubleshoot this. And it completely went away. She was like, oh, you know what? We used a stain stick, and that seemed to help. Again, just confronting it head on in a neutral way. The next story is of a client. This happened during the pandemic. And one of the services that we offer is photo styling. And the client, we typically do a consultation and a photo styling. So we did that. The client really didn't do anything from the consultation. It was during the pandemic. So I actually did the work by myself, and the homeowner was out of town, and I did the work on my own. I had to do a lot of work because she didn't do any of her homework ahead of time. And so I did a lot of work, and I made a lot of changes to her house based on the consultation plan. I followed the whole plan. She came home and she was so upset and called her agent crying and very upset about the work that was done at her house. And the agent called me and she's like, I don't know what to do with this. She's like, she called me so upset and in hysterics. And I said to the realtor, I said, here's what you need to do. You need to tell her, obviously, and this was true, that we had worked with her many times before. The result was always phenomenal. Take a deep breath. The house looks great. It's going to sell quickly. And part of the emotion that this homeowner had was that she was selling a house after her husband had died, and he had done a lot of the work in the house. And I think it was all of the emotion of all of that coming up for her, not actually the work that I had done. But I said to the agent, I said, listen, I was like, this is what you're going to say to her. You're going to say, give us the week on the market. If the house doesn't sell, then obviously we should, get the staging team back in to make some adjustments. And you're going to tell me what you think needs to be done. And of course, the house sold in that first week because that's what was happening. And that's what always happens with, or 99% of the time happens with our staged properties. So it just, again, taught me that I don't need to fold, and I don't need to believe that the client is right all the time, but I can step up in a grounded way to advocate for my business and advocate for our work, right? So that's the first example. Then we have operational grievances. So that was like grievances over our work. And again, I'll share with you the link to our communication plan where we have verbiage around how we do modifications, but you should always start from the place of advocating for why you did what you did, because you did it for a reason. You made the choices you made for a reason. And then you can say, but certainly, if we have it on the market for a week and it seems like that's glaring, then yeah, I'd be happy to come and change it out for, if you have to charge for it or whatever, but I'd be happy to come out and make 3 changes. And as long as it doesn't involve me hiring movers and whatever, like you can assuage people that way, but a lot of times you won't even have to, which is what I've learned. Okay. And then there's the operational grievances. This is when people are not loving what you do operationally. And the first thing I'm going to say is make sure you have a really good client agreement if you're doing vacant staging. And I have 2 episodes that there's several episodes that you can go and listen to about this. The first is episode 35, 5 ways to protect your staging business This is the item, like things that you definitely want to make sure are in your vacant staging agreement. But you can also go to episode 35, the absolute best way to handle a change request, and episode 37, how to say no, but sound like you're saying yes. So those are all really good episodes to go back and listen to. And we'll link those in the show notes for you. But anyway, so moving on to the operational grievances. One time, this is probably a few years into my business, actually probably 5 years into my business, because I had my staging team at that point and Catherine and all of that. So I was hired to stage a property that was for an out-of-town investor, and he had flipped this property, and I was brought in by a person who helped him do the flip since he was from out of town. And we staged this place beautifully. But the one thing I noticed right away was that he was doing he'll either rent it or sell it kind of thing. So he hadn't really made a decision about what he was doing. So it was confusing marketing right out of the gate. But he had signed our client agreement. And so he was our direct connection, and he had initialed where it talks about rental extensions. Our team sent out rental extension notifications. Do you want us to destage, or would you like us to continue the rent, whatever? And if we don't hear from you by X date and time, your credit card on file will be charged X amount for the monthly fee, right? So we did all of that, and we did that for probably 6 months. And then I got a crazy email from this guy talking about how what the hell is he being charged for by a staging company every month for 6 months. And it was just like this really just wild email. So I responded back and I said, here's the client agreement that you signed. And I just want you to see the section that you initialed about rental extensions. And here I'm going to forward you the 6 emails that we sent to you regarding whether you wanted to destage or extend your rental. And if we hadn't heard from you, that our policy is to charge the card on file. And I said, and I'd be happy to get on a call and speak to you about this. So he answered back how he was still confused. Why was he receiving this? So I answered him back. I said, I'm happy to get on a call with you, but based on this conversation, are you asking us to destage at this time? And to which he said, yes, please destage. And that was the end of it. I didn't owe him any money. I didn't end up having to get on the phone with him because I held my ground with him. And it was just the most fascinating thing how he literally just was like, yes, destage, that's it. Because I had followed the letter of my client agreement and I was willing to advocate for it, and I was not going to be bullied out of it. So again, just something I want to share with you. The next one is I had a realtor who in the very beginning of my business was my biggest supporter. She hired me for everything, and she talked me up to all of her clients. She loved me. We were in a similar networking. She was in another BNI chapter that I did a lot of subbing for. So I would see her on a regular basis. And one of the policies that I changed once she and I had been working together was that I was going to be taking payment before I had a consultation and before I sent out our selling success plan. So it was payment upfront to get time on my calendar, because I did not have the time. I was getting busier and I did not have the time to be following up and chasing people for their money. So the minute I instituted this plan, I had worked with her, mind you, for probably 2 years at this point, and I had always produced my work product to her, the selling success plan, in a timely manner, 48 hours. That was my rule. Within 48 business hours, I didn't need these plans stacking up on me. So she had always received a plan within 48 hours. And the first time that she encountered the barrier where she was going to have to pay first to get on my calendar, she sent me a very harsh email stating, how dare I charge ahead of delivering any work product for her and what a terrible business policy this was, and that she could no longer work with me if this was the policy moving forward. And again, I said, thank you so much for sharing your feedback with me. I'd love to get on a call to share with you why the policy has shifted. But if you feel so strongly that you don't want to work with me anymore, while it saddens me that you'll make that choice, this policy is the new thing moving forward. And I wish you tons of luck. And I lost her. I thought maybe she would want to have a conversation about it, and she didn't. And she and I have never worked again together. And I have to say, I was so relieved, because when that defaulted her, I thought, gosh, I would never not provide a work product. So you're already telling me that the trust that I thought I was building over 2 years was not there. That's okay with me. You can go use somebody else. And honestly, that was just the best thing that could have happened to me, because it actually opened me up, and I had so many new amazing realtors come into my business who were willing to pay ahead of time, that continue to pay ahead of time. And of course, now we all have models for paying for things that, you don't get, right? You buy things on Amazon that you haven't received yet. You are trusting that Amazon is going to deliver the goods. And that's how I felt. It's like, if you don't trust me, then you got to go. So anyway, so that was like, those were a couple of really highlighty things. But again, just having grounded, neutral communication, being willing to have a tough conversation in person, not by email, served me really well. The next is morphing services to suit your needs. This one is really interesting, because I have never wanted to morph my services to suit people's needs, including selling my inventory, not at least in the moment. I have always wanted to defer that and then figure out how I want to handle it. So this is just, advice to you. Take it for what it's worth. You may encounter somebody who you're like, oh, that sounds like a great opportunity, and I'm going to figure it out. That's awesome. That's not me. And I know that's not me. So I have simply shared with people, that's so interesting. I'd never thought about that. At this time, we're not offering that service, or we're not offering to sell our inventory. But it doesn't mean that I won't do it in the future. And if that changes, I will absolutely let you know. That is it. That's all you have to say. You don't have to scramble to try to make something work. And I even just had this happen, where a realtor who had kind of dipped away from using staging for a while has come back, and he started using us again. And one of the things that we do is that if you're going to have, if it's for an occupied listing and you're going to have a photo styling service, you absolutely have to have the styling evaluation or consultation or walk and talk first. We don't do our photo styling without that first, because we had a lot of clients crying, upset, not happy, because we were getting in and being super invasive with their things. And our team also spent a ton of time doing things that the client could have done first. So he was like, oh, so can I just have people skip the consult? And I was like, that's not how the process works. At this time, we found it to be best not to do that to your clients. It just has left so many clients wrecked and not happy with us, not happy with their realtor. And we just don't want to do that. So the client has to have that eval first. And he was totally fine with that. He's like, okay, no, I totally understand that. Same thing with selling inventory. I have been approached by that. And honestly, when we've had our best inventory in houses, I don't want to sell it. I don't want to go through the work. I'm not the biggest fan of shopping or having to purchase new inventory when not needed, especially when it's like my best stuff and it's my newest stuff. So I've turned that down, and I've simply said that, it's not our policy to sell our staging inventory. Typically, it's not designed for living, first of all. And, but it's food for thought for me. And if I ever decide that that's going to be part of our business model, I'll be happy to update you. And people get that. It's not a problem. So anyway, just wanted to share those examples from my real business, over here, and how I've handled those, and that I've been in those moments right there with you. Again, if you want the comm plan, it'll be in the show notes, but it's rethinkHomeInteriors.com/comm plan. And you can download all of the sample communications that we've had from our business that we set up to handle our own communications things when we have client grievances. So anyway, hope that was a great sip for you. Again, go be a rising tide to the community around you. Go like or comment on another Staging Business post, leave a rating or review for this podcast so that another business owner can find it, and join us and Accelerate. If you are feeling the struggle is real, and you want to learn more tools and have community support, come join us. Okay. Bye for now, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today, please take a minute to rate and review it so more staging business owners can find us. And if you want to learn more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I'd love to see you join us inside of the Rethink You Accelerate mentorship program. It is open enrollment. You can get more details at rethinkhomeinteriors.com/rethinkyou. Would love to see you inside.